Hi everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, today I want to talk all about Paperwhite narcissus, how to grow them, different mediums you can grow them in, some common problems you might encounter while growing Paperwhites, how to get shorter, stockier stems, creative ways to use and gift Paperwhites, and also talk about how to use them as cut flowers. Because the reason that I like to grow Paperwhites is to have flowers to cut during the winter months. So all the flowers that you see currently here, we're actually going to cut at the end of the video, and then we're going to put them in water tubes and put them on the Christmas tree over in my living room. That's how I like to grow them. And that's why you also see them growing here in succession. That way I always have a steady supply of Paperwhites throughout the winter season. And I think the most important thing to talk about is actually the fragrance of Paperwhites, because the smell can really be polarized depending on who you speak with. Some people say it has a beautiful, strong floral fragrance. Other people will tell you that it smells like cat pee or even worse. And the biochemical that's at work here is called indole. And depending on what variety of Paperwhite narcissus that you choose to grow, the level of indole varies. So if you grow a really common variety of Paperwhite called Ziva, that has a really high concentration of indole. Hence, it's going to have a very strong fragrance. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. But my thought is try some of the other varieties of Paperwhites that don't have such a strong fragrance. These varieties are Near and Inball. Those are my personal favorites, and we're going to be planting Inball today. Now, Near looks almost identical to Ziva, but it's a little bit shorter and the flowers are just a little bit bigger. Inball looks pretty much identical to Ziva, but it has almost no fragrance. So why not plant Inball? That's my thought on that. Unless, of course, you like the fragrance, then plant Ziva. So once you select the variety of Paperwhite that you want to grow, you can go ahead and get to planting. Now, Paperwhites are sold just like Amaryllis in centimeters, which is the circumference of the bulb. I like to purchase 17 centimeter Paperwhite bulbs. This is going to give me multiple stems of flowers from each bulb. Just like always with bulbs, the bigger the bulb, the more flowers you're going to get from that bulb. Now, most Paperwhite bulbs come over from Israel, where they're grown in greenhouses at relatively cool temperatures. Generally between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit is what these greenhouses are set as. And that's very interesting and I think helpful when we are looking for a good place to put them in our homes. So these are tender bulbs. They're hardy in zones 8 through 11. They're native to the Mediterranean. And so when it comes to growing them inside our homes, they don't need any pre-chilling. You can just plant them and in 4 to 6 weeks, you'll have this beautiful, fragrant floral show. So you can either grow them over pebbles and just add water, or you can grow them in potting soil. So let me show you how to do both. I don't really have a particular way I like to grow them. I just like to grow them and cut them. I do think the stones is a really nice, easy, and beautiful way to grow them. So let's do that first. So to plant them in pebbles, you're just going to fill a glass vessel with pebbles. About 3 to 4 inches is great. And then we're just going to nestle our Paperwhites in the pebbles. Just give them a little push down so they're nice and secure. As Paperwhites grow, the roots sometimes push the bulbs up out of the pebbles or out of the soil, and so that's why you want to give them a nice push down. And if they do pop up, don't worry, just push them back down. So once they're nestled in there, we'll go ahead and fill this with water, and we want the water level to be below the base of the bulb. We don't want even the base of the bulb to be touching the water. Paperwhites have an amazing capacity to sense the presence of water, so the water actually doesn't need to be touching the bulb. And what can happen if the bulb is just sitting in water is that the bulb is probably going to rot. And guess what? I've rotted a bulb before, so I can tell you what it does when that happens. A lot of times what you're going to see is it won't happen until much later on. You know, weeks are going to pass, your Paperwhites might be all budded up, and then all of a sudden you're going to see the leaves start to yellow, almost towards the central part of the leaf, and then some browning. That's a really good indication that there's rot going on in your bulb. So just keep it under the base of the bulb. So like this. Do you guys like my watering can? It's a Chemex. This is the best Christmas gift my husband ever got me, was this Chemex. Multi-purpose, gardening and caffeine. So hopefully you can see here, but that water is not touching the base of the bulb. It's maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch under the basal plate. And you just want to keep it that way as they grow. Just keep the roots in water and not the bulb. So that's growing in pebbles, or basically growing in water, you could say. Now, potting soil is pretty much the same. I have a container here that I've just filled with some pre-moistened potting soil. And once again, I'm just gonna stick my bulbs in. I'm getting about 2/3 of the bulbs underneath the soil line, and I'm going to leave about 1/3 of the bulb above the soil line, just pushing them in. And you can plant Paperwhites really, really close together. They can almost be touching for a really beautiful display. So I think this will be great. I won't try to sneak that guy in. And then I'll just fill in with a little more pre-moistened potting soil. And then you can go ahead and top dress this with, I don't know if you can see over there, but I just use moss, pine cones. What I'm gonna do with this one, and I actually have to go out to Rohrer Seed after this to buy some seed, is I'm gonna plant grass around these, because I saw that in a magazine recently and I thought that was so beautiful, and it was something I hadn't tried before. So I wanna try something different this year. So I'll go ahead and give these guys just a bit of water. And once these start actively growing, which will happen very, very quickly, I'll make sure to keep the soil evenly moist, but never damp or soggy. I think you could say probably slightly moist, slightly damp. You don't really want them to dry out. That will harm the flower production and the longevity of the flower. But also, like we talked about before, you don't want them swimming in water. So now what we can do is one of two things. The first thing is, if you wanted to, you could promote really great root growth by actually putting these in darkness for about 7 to 10 days. Maybe you put them under your sink, maybe you put them in a cool closet, somewhere about 50 to 60 degrees, but you want dark, because what you want to happen is the roots to start to grow and not the shoots. And if you've ever had trouble with Paperwhites flapping over, it's probably because they just grew too quickly and they don't have a strong enough root system to support themselves. So you can skip this step if you like, but it is beneficial, especially if you want your Paperwhites to be strong and upright and more robust. Put them in a dark place, 50 to 60 degrees, for about a week. Now, once that 7 to 10 days has passed, you want to bring them out of darkness. They're going to have a really great root system already started for you, and you want to put them in a nice bright location, but still a relatively cool location. You're looking for somewhere actually that's about 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit is the ideal temperature to grow really stocky and strong Paperwhites that hold themselves up. So the location is going to vary from person to person, but just think about where in my home is really bright, but also cool at the same time. I think we all do have those kind of pockets in our home where one area or another is cooler or warmer than others, but really giving the Paperwhites two things: that time in darkness to develop a healthy root system before they're exposed to light, and then placing them in a spot that's bright and cool will help you avoid the classic falling over that often happens with Paperwhites. Because when a Paperwhite falls over, there's a couple things that might have happened. First, it just didn't have time to develop a strong root system. Second is it didn't get enough light. And third was that it was grown too warm. And I purposely grew Paperwhites too warm so that you can see the difference. So these Paperwhites here were all grown in a very cool location in my home, and were allowed that 7 to 10 days, even 14 days in that dark place under my kitchen counter to develop a healthy root system. But in contrast, here's two that I put directly on a radiator. So these ones were grown on the radiators. This one was on a radiator in my kitchen. Now remember, my kitchen doesn't have any insulation, so these look a little bit better. But can you even see them all in the viewfinder? You can see how tall they are. I did have to support them here with a bow. I'll show you. And really, that's not too floppy from probably other ones that you've seen. but you know, they are benefiting from me tying them up. And look at this one. This one was grown on the radiator right here next to me. So there is insulation in that wall, so it's even warmer. And you know, the radiators are about 68, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And I also didn't give this particular one any time in darkness to develop a healthy root system. So the stems are very long, lanky, and what's the most sad part for me is the stems are weak. So in terms of a cut flower, this stem is much, much weaker than my shorter, stockier stems. So I hope it's really helpful to see that visual of Paperwhites that are grown immediately in a bright location that's very, very warm versus Paperwhites grown in a cool location that are given that 1 to 2 weeks in darkness to develop a healthy and robust root system before they start putting on any active top or shoot growth. So there is a very popular study by Cornell where they tested the effects of alcohol on Paperwhites and found that it resulted in shorter stems. I have tried this in the past, but the thing is that alcohol actually stunts the plant's growth and ruins the bulb. And if you're in zones 8 through 11, you can plant these bulbs out in the garden after they're done. It will take them multiple seasons to regenerate and give you a good show, but they will come back. But if you treat them with alcohol, you really do have to dispose of the bulbs. But in case you want to give that a try, you want to go ahead in with a clear liquor, such as vodka, 1 part vodka to 7 parts water. And you want to start watering them with this alcohol solution when the shoots are about 3 to 4 inches high. If you prefer not to purchase vodka or liquor for one reason or another, you can also use rubbing alcohol, but you need to do that at a 1 part rubbing alcohol to 10 to 12 parts water ratio. And remember, don't start using this solution until the shoots are 3 to 4 inches high. So now let's talk about some fun ways you can grow Paperwhites and also gift them to friends and family, because like I said at the beginning, these bulbs are so inexpensive. They make great party favors or hostess gifts, and I hope to give you some good ideas here. So the number one thing, well, I don't know if it's the number one, but the one thing I like to do is plant them in reusable dishes. So in a sense, a dish that will have another purpose once the bulbs are all done blooming. So like this one that we planted earlier on, this is a fruit bowl. This is an antique casserole dish. This is a candy dish. And this is an oven-safe bowl that I got from my grandma. She gave one to all of us girls when she was still alive. And now I plant Paperwhites in it, and then I can use it to bake something in afterwards. So instead of just gifting Paperwhites in a pot, maybe gift them in some kitchenware. I've even seen some that people did it in a bread pan. You know, you can gift Paperwhites today, and then they can return the favor by making you cinnamon swirl bread tomorrow. Now the next idea I think would be really great if you're having a dinner party and maybe you want to gift these to your guests, or maybe you want to even use them like as nameplates at your table. So what I did, this is just a ball mason jar, and I just filled it with some white crushed stone. I placed a single Paperwhite bulb in there, put the lid on, and then I just adorned it with some pine, some boxwood, and some berries. And then what your recipient can do is when they want to start growing this Paperwhite, they would just, simply remove the lid. And you could put like a care tag on this too to help them out. Fill it with water to just below the base of the bulb, and then they can grow it right here in this vessel. And I really like the look of this white crushed stone because I think it looks like snow. Now my other idea, and this probably is my favorite one, is to kind of do this lantern or illuminated Paperwhite display. So I did this kind of as you would a terrarium. I did some potting soil, some stones, some moss, some pine cones, and then I went ahead and let the Paperwhites grow a while. And then I just took some battery operated fairy lights. Here's the battery pack right here. And it's probably a little bit harder to see it during the daylight, but at night, this is really magical. And it kind of got me thinking that you could probably do this in an enclosed lantern as well, as long as you found a tall enough lantern. So if anyone gives that a try, definitely tag me. I'm still on the hunt for a lantern at a consignment store that won't break the bank. And my last idea is to just grow them for cut flowers. This is the way I would love to receive Paperwhites, and it's the reason why I'm growing so many Paperwhite bulbs in succession, so that I have a steady supply of homegrown blooms even in the dead of winter. And I can display these all on their own. I could pair them with amaryllis, pine, berry branches. Do remember that Paperwhites are narcissus. They're a tazetta. I'm not sure if I said that before, but these guys do put out that same toxic sap that all narcissus do. So you do want to let the sap drain out for an hour or two before you mix them with other flowers. But you know what I'm going to do today is I'm going to put these in water tubes and I'm going to put them on my Christmas tree. And then as these flowers fade on my Christmas tree, the next succession will come on and I'll be ready to cut them and put them on my Christmas tree. And if I'm just growing them for the purpose of cutting, and I'll put a picture of this in my edition, I just grow them in 6-pack cells. They're really big 6-packs that have a really nice root run. You can just grow the bulbs right in there. They'll bloom in there for you. And then you don't have to really worry about having, you know, maybe 200 Paperwhites all around your house. You can kind of concentrate them to one area if you are solely growing them for cutting. So I've started to put some on the tree, and you can see I just have them in the water tubes. You can buy these water tubes on Amazon. I think it might cost you, it should be less than $10 for a 40 or 50 pack. But I'm just gonna put these right into the Christmas tree. And I love using fresh flowers on the tree. And just this light fragrance of, these are in-ball Paperwhites, I think will be really lovely. It also does seem that once you cut Paperwhites, the smell is not quite as strong. So that's helpful to note. You can see that I have my lamb's ear ornaments on this Christmas tree. A lot of people ask me if these go brown as the years go on. They don't. It's really amazing. My aunt has some that are even, I mean, they've got to be like 30, 35 years old. Hers look exactly the same as this that I just made a year ago. This might also be a really great idea if you force some hyacinths to use those on your Christmas tree, and then you would get that nice fragrance of the hyacinth also. But Paperwhites do say Christmas, don't they? And I think this is gonna turn out really nice. Well guys, I sure hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you're growing any new variety of Paperwhite this year. You know, once I landed on in-ball, I kind of didn't try any more out. I've only tried Ziva near in-ball and one called Erlicheer. I'm not really sure if you say it Erlicheer or Erlicher, but that is a double. It does force okay, but it's not quite as reliable in my experience. But there's a lot of new varieties that are always turning up. So if you have one that you really like, please let me know about it. And I hope you'll just give Paperwhites a try, and maybe for the purpose of cutting this year. Why not? They make great cut flowers and you can grow them yourself right in your home. So I want to wish you a great day, and until next time, happy gardening. Bye.